And one of the things about the mercy seat, it's, you know, when you look at all that God gave them as a pattern and what he wanted them, the things he wanted them to understand, it's pretty deep, if you will, very, you know, and then obviously of what it represents. Oh, let me turn this on. Sorry about that. I don't know, that might make it worse. Y'all can actually hear me now. But the mercy seat, the lid used to cover the sacred ark, mercy seat, slab of gold, and it was solid gold. It didn't have acacia wood in it. It was solid gold. On top of the covenant, which measured 2.5 by 1.5 cubits on it, and part of it were the two golden cherubim facing each other, as we saw in the picture, whose outstretched wings came together and constituted the throne of God. And so this mercy seat, and there's quite a bit, you know, we're going to kind of look at some passages. We're going to look at some passages from the New Testament as well. But the Septuagint, or the Greek version, uses this hil asterion, and that's the word that it uses in the Septuagint, or the Greek version, and it's used at the cover of the Ark of the Covenant in the Holy of Holies, which was sprinkled with the blood of the expiatory victim on the annual Day of Atonement. And that word there, and I think where did I put that? Oh, I think I had it in here. Which denotes that which makes expiration or propitiation. The justice of God is satisfied. You know, so that's one of the great things that we're going to see. And it talks about the victim here on the annual day, which would have been the animal sacrifice, the blood there, the bull. This rite signifying that the life of the people, the loss of which they had merited by their sins, was offered to God in the blood as the life of the victim, and that God, by the ceremony, was appeased and their sins were expirated, hence the lid of expiration or propitiatory. And so the thing is, what we see were sins, and I don't know if this is the card that okay, I guess I'll go with that. But sins could be forgiven. And so we turn over to Hebrews chapter 9, and I wanted to read, basically I'm going to be reading from the King James Version. And I'm actually going to read more than just what's there, Hebrews 5 there. I wanted to get a full sense here. And it talks about some things, and there's something in verse 4 that I don't know if it might have you. I don't know if you ever looked at that. I may ask Gable if he's actually looked at this before, because I didn't realize. But there was there's actually some controversy about this, but. Let me start in verse 1. Then indeed, even the first covenant had ordinances of divine service and the earthly sanctuary, for a tabernacle was prepared, the first part in which was the lampstand, the table, and the showbread, which is called the sanctuary. And behind the second veil, the part of the tabernacle, which is called the holiest of all, which had the golden censer and the ark of the covenant overlaid on all sides with gold, in which were the golden pot that had the manna, Aaron's rod that budded, and the tablets of the covenant. And above it were the cherubim of glory overshadowing the mercy seat, of whose things we cannot now speak in detail, which is interesting, because even at this writing here, there's things that we cannot speak in detail. And so it talks about the mercy seat here. In verse 4, I found that interesting. It talks about the Holy of Holies, and it mentions the golden censer there. And, if you look in the thing, you won't find it where it says the golden censer is part of that. But I like how Bob in his material kind of, I think, addresses that when we get to the altar of burnt offering. Not the altar of burnt offering, I'm sorry, the altar of incense. he makes a note about that, but about the golden censer there. So we'll look at that then. I didn't know if Gable had ever read, or if you'd ever thought about that or not. Because when I was reading through, it seemed like there's some people like, wait a minute, that's not supposed to be in there. It never mentions it over, the golden censer in the Holy of Holies. Like, there's another piece in there. And that would have been the one, well, we'll get to that when we get to the altar of incense. And so basically, it talks about the mercy seat here. And then in Romans chapter 3, and let's turn over to Romans chapter 3. And again, I want to read a little bit more than what's on the screen there. I'm gonna go all the way back up to verse 19, because the whole thing that I want to look at this, but I want us to get a sense of looking at it from where we are, looking back at it and realizing just how blessed we truly are, and have an understanding for the what God wanted them to know, and what they were given, and the purpose for it. But we live at a time when we are so blessed, and I'll pick up in verse 19. Now we know that whatever the law says, it says to those who are under the law, that every mouth may be stopped, and all the world may become guilty before God. Therefore, by the deeds of the law, no flesh shall be justified in his sight, for by the law is the knowledge of sin. So let me pause there. So that's what the law did. Here's what's acceptable, here's what's not acceptable, before God. Verse 21, but now the righteousness of God apart from the law is revealed, being witnessed by the law and the prophets, even the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ to all and on all who believe, for there is no difference. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus, whom God set forth. And again, in this verse 25 here, that makes reference to Christ. It's like the mercy seat. Whom God set forth as a propitiation by his blood through faith to demonstrate his righteousness, because in his forbearance God had passed over the sins that were previously committed, to demonstrate at the present time his righteousness, that he might be just and the justifier of the one who has faith in Jesus. And so, looking back at what they had, and we know that one time a year they would go in and blood was sprinkled on the mercy seat. And do y'all know what day that would have been? When would and who would have done that? Huh? Do I? Day of Atonement. Yeah, that would have been I think the 10th day, the 7th month, only by the high priest, and it was to make atonement for the children of Israel. And so, when you think about Christ, he's our mercy seat, but he's also, you might say, the victim. He's the one. He's the mercy seat, and he's the one who supplied the blood, if you will. And it's just tremendous to think about. As it points out at the very. Let me pick up the hill Astarion, a means of appeasing or expiating, placating the means by which people's sins are forgiven. Thus Christ is the ultimate point of mercy, covering of sin. And so the point of it is, God made provision for them, but how much more, and you see the things that are symbolic, if you will, that we have now, Christ being our mercy seat and the perfect sacrifice. So I don't want to get far afield on that, but I hope we, if anything, it gives us a deeper sense of again, just how blessed we are. Any thoughts or anything before I move on to the... And so then we come to the table of showbread. And that is in, let's read Exodus 25, verses 23 through 30. Exodus 25, 23 through 23 through 30. And you shall make a table of acacia wood. 2 cubits shall be its length, a cubit its width, and a cubit and a half its height. And you shall overlay it with pure gold, and make molding of gold all around. You shall make for it a frame of a handbreadth all around, and you shall make a gold molding for the frame all around. And you shall make for it 4 rings of gold, and put the rings on the 4 corners that are in its 4 legs. The rings shall be close to the frame as holders for the poles to bear the table. And you shall make the poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold, that the table may be carried with them. You shall make its dishes, its pans, its pitchers, and its bowls for pouring. You shall make them of pure gold, and you shall set the showbread on the table before me always. And I wanted to read what Bob had to say about the table of showbread here. It was on the north side of the holy place. There was a table called the table of showbread, or table of presence. It too was made of acacia wood and overlaid with gold. There was a border around the sides of the table and a rim above that. A ring of gold was on each of the 4 legs of the table, through which 2 staves were placed for carrying it. The vessels which accompanied the table of showbread were of gold. They included platters, bowls in which the loaves were probably placed, spoons and small scoops used to hold the incense which was offered with the showbread, vessels to dip out the wine and pour it, that's referenced in Exodus 37:16, and bowls, chalices, or goblets which were used for drinking vessels. They were to take finely ground flour and bake 12 loaves of unleavened bread and place them on the table in sets of 6. And if you look at the picture there, you see two stacks, and it's like there's 6 on each one. On 2 sets of 6, possibly in 2 stacks of 6 each. Frankincense was placed on the top of each stack of the showbread and was burned in the fire as an offering to the Lord. Each Sabbath day, the showbread was replaced with 12 fresh loaves. The old bread was eaten by the priest in a holy place, for it was a holy sacrifice unto God. And so that's what it looks like. You know, when you read things, and things may come to your mind. Do y'all remember an incident about the showbread where it had a place in history? Huh?
When David was escaping.
To Nob. He went to Nob, and that's actually in 1 Samuel 21, 4, and 6. And in 1 Samuel, you know, you go there. I think I got it marked. Yeah, listen, no I don't. 1 Kings 21, 4 and 6. David's on the run from Saul. And so David goes to Nob, and Ahimelech is the priest. And verse 4, I'll speak in verse 3. Now David shows up and he says, "Now therefore, what have you on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in my hand, or whatever you can be found." And the priest answered David and said, "There is no common bread on hand, but there is holy bread. If young men have at least kept themselves from women." And let me drop down to verse 6. So the priest gave him holy bread, for there was no bread there, but the showbread which had been taken from before the Lord, in order to put hot bread in its place on the day when it was taken away. Now help me understand this. This bread is only supposed to be eaten by the priest in a holy place, and the bread's replaced. So what do we make of this about David? And can you think of a situation from the New Testament where Jesus actually talks about this? Dealing with the Sabbath, and that's in Matthew. I think it's in Matthew 12. I think that's the one I want to read. It's recorded more than once, like in Luke 6, but Matthew 12. Let's turn to Matthew 12. And the Pharisees were always trying to catch Jesus, and they're always trying to do some things here. And when we think about the table of showbread, I bring this in because we need to make a connection with all this, you know. And so Matthew 12, verses 3 through 8. Well, let me go back and just read verse 1 so we can get a true sense of what we're talking about. At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath day, and his disciples were hungry and began to pluck heads of grain and to eat. And when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, "Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath." But he said to them, "Have you not read what David did when he was hungry, he and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God and ate the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priest? Or have you not read in the law that on the Sabbath the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? Yet I say to you that in this place there is one greater than the temple. But if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would have not condemned the guiltless, for the Son of Man is the Lord even of the Sabbath." Just quickly, what is Jesus saying here? He points out to David and, this situation going back to what David did here. What do y'all make of that? I think the Pharisees did not hold David. They didn't accuse David. I think they just kind of, I guess, to put it in a true sense, in understanding what we're reading here, all these things that God is giving them. Well, what's going to happen over time? By the time Jesus comes along, the rabbis have taken all of these different regulations that God has given, like about the Sabbath, and they've made all of these different regulations, and they've done, and the rabbis have said this and that. Going through, when David was in this situation, he was starving. These men were starving. And so the thing is, God never is given a regulation that opposes mercy. Here's the regulation, but he never has given a regulation that hey, you're starving, too bad. Hope maybe you won't die. No, you get the true sense of God has always been about taking care of those who need to be taken care of, and mercy. And Jesus is pointing back, looking at this particular situation and saying, look, you wouldn't find fault with David. What you're doing is, here's his disciples. They're hungry. They're going through. And it's not that they've broken the Sabbath. It's that they've broken what these Pharisees have these. This is what it means, and this is no. They have taken it and they've twisted things around, and so Jesus is using this event again about the showbread to show David, like I say, he was starving and needed something to eat. And Ahimelech did fulfill what God wanted done by taking care of David, doing the greatest thing that could be done by showing mercy to a starving man. And Jesus is pointing out that his disciples, they're hungry. And so it's not that they're breaking the Sabbath. And the fact that he says that he's the Lord of the Sabbath, that doesn't mean that because I'm Lord of the Sabbath, I can do whatever I want to. No, what that means is he understands exactly what the Sabbath is and what God had intended in that kind of situation. And what they have done, they did not break the Sabbath. I just throw that in, so again, I didn't mean to get afield with that. But thinking about the table of showbread, maybe that's a thought that'll come to your mind when you think about the table of showbread, that situation. But again, I think it's interesting to point out that the Jews over time will take these things and they will make their own regulations, if you will, and certainly not what God had intended. And they try to. Jesus was without sin, and he knew exactly what the Sabbath was and what it was for, and they did not break it. And so, just saying that, so I just throw that out there. Now we get into Leviticus, and it tells, "And thou shalt take fine flour and bake 12 cakes thereof, 2/10 parts of an ephah shall be in one cake. And thou shalt set them in 2 rows, six on a row upon the pure table before Jehovah. And thou shalt put pure frankincense upon each row, and it shall be to the bread for memorial, even an offering made by fire unto Jehovah. Every Sabbath you shall set it in order before Jehovah continually. It shall be on the behalf of the children of Israel an everlasting covenant, and it shall be for Aaron and his sons, and they shall eat it in a holy place, for it is most holy unto him, for the offerings of Jehovah made by fire, by a perpetual statute. So again, we see these are the regulations God gave. And again, I touched on some things that in history down the road you're going to see where, again, dealing with the table of showbread, it has its place in history. Use your finest flour to bake 12 loaves of bread, about 4 pounds each, and the footnote is that it's probably about 7 pounds. So any questions about the table of showbread? Any questions about anything that I've said? I don't want to say anything amiss, so if I say anything, please, I want to make sure I get it right. So, and then the tabernacles, we see it there, and we're going to actually kind of look at the courtyard in just a little bit. And then we see the furniture, again, the layout of the tabernacle. And we're going to look at the candlestick next, the candlestick. And Exodus 25, 31 through 40. Exodus 25, 31 through 40. 25, 31 through 40. That this shall be no grief of you, nor offense. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still in 1 Samuel. I'm sorry. I'm like, whoa, this does not look right. Pardon me. I'm sorry. I did not switch over there. All right, 31 through 40. And ye shall make a lampstand of pure gold. The lampstand shall be of hammered work. Its shaft, its branches, its bowls, its ornaments, knobs, and flowers shall be of one piece. And 6 branches shall come out of its sides, 3 branches of the lampstand out of one side, and 3 branches of the lampstand out of the other side. 3 bowls shall be like almond blossoms on one branch, and an ornamental knob and a flower, and 3 bowls made like almond blossoms on the other branch, with an ornamental knob and a flower. And a flower. And so for the 6 branches that come out of the lampstand. On the lampstand itself, 4 bowls shall be made like almond blossoms, each with its ornamental knob and flower. And there shall be a knob under the first 2 branches of the same, a knob under the second 2 branches of the same, a knob under the third 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches that extend from the lampstand. Their knobs and their branches shall be of one piece. All of it shall be one hammered piece of pure gold. You shall make 7 lamps for it, and they shall arrange its lamps so that they give light in front of it. And its wick trimmers and their trays shall be of pure gold. And it shall be made of a talent of pure gold with all these utensils. And see to it that you make it according to the pattern which was shown you on the mountain. And so when you look at this, it's going to be made out of pure gold, a talent of gold, which I think is about 75 pounds or so. And I think the mercy seat was pure gold, and the lampstand. The other items had the acacia wood covered with gold. And let me go ahead and read what Bob has to say here. On the south side of the holy place stood the golden candlestick. It and the mercy seat on top of the Ark of the Covenant were the only articles of gold that did not have a core of acacia wood. The candlestick was made of a talent of gold, about 75 pounds. Apparently the sniffers and the sniff dishes were made of that same talent of gold. No dimensions are given, but it's speculated that it is about 1.5 cubits, 27 inches in length, and 1.5 cubits, 27 inches in width, from outside branch to outside branch. So again, we don't know, but that's an estimate. in general, I guess. There was a base, a pedestal, and 7 branches. Each branch consisted of 3 cups shaped like almond blossoms, followed by a knob, he's got in parentheses, pomegranate, and a flower, which would be a lily blossom. There is no point in trying to decide exactly what the details of the candlestick look like, because again, we do not know. But we have, you have a general idea. It's important to understand that though many translations of the Bible use the word candlestick, the object referred to was actually a lampstand with lamps on the end of the branches which held olive oil with wicks. The Israelites were instructed to bring pure olive oil so the lamps could be kept burning regularly. Lamps were not perpetually lit in the sense of never being extinguished. And because when traveling, the Israelites carried the lampstand with its vessels in a bag suspended from a frame or bar. Continually means regularly. When the tabernacle was set up, the Bible says that the lampstand was to be kept in order from evening to morning. Every morning, Aaron was to dress the lamps, that's to clean the lamps and put in fresh oil. And every evening, he would light or trim the lamps. It was at these times, while the priest was inside the tabernacle, that the incense was to be offered upon the golden altar of incense. So there was things that had to be done. There was regular maintenance, if you will, things that had to be done. And I'll throw this out. I didn't write anything about it, but do y'all remember something about the lampstand? And it happened, I guess, during the years of silence that the Jews still celebrate today. Yeah, Hanukkah, that supposedly it's based on it. I think didn't it burn for like 8 days or something like that, and it supposedly there wasn't a lot of oil. And again, just saying, it was, that's one of the things that they, I guess they still celebrate today, and I think it's based on that about the. I guess they believe it was a miracle. And so here's a detailed thing. You look at the branch and the shaft and the flower or bud. And just see the branches and that kind of thing of what it may have looked like. And then here, and I don't know, I didn't get a chance to ask Wes, but I guess this is something that, somewhere that this is a general representation of what it may have looked like. Some kind of, I guess, carved in stone or whatever, and what it may have, how it may have looked. In Exodus 25:37, make 7 lamps and set them on the lampstand so that they light the area in front of it. And do y'all notice something? What's the inside there? Is there anything that's going to give it, kind of help it reflect a little bit, help it really light things up? All that gold, yeah. So you think, well, this one lampstand. I mean, even though it's it's got the 7 lamps burning on it, but with the reflective gold and everything in there and the metal, it's gonna. Yeah, I have no doubt it would be. The light would be intensified, if you will. Any mention of that? Okay. And then we get the altar of incense, and this is Exodus 30:1 through 10. Exodus 30:1 through 10. And you shall make an altar to burn incense on. You shall make it of acacia wood. A cubit shall be its length, and a cubit its width, and it shall be square, and 2 cubits shall be its height. Its horns shall be of one piece with it. And you shall overlay its top, its sides all around, and its horns with pure gold. And you shall make for it a molding of gold all around. 2 gold rings you shall make for it under the molding on both of its sides. You shall place them on its 2 sides, and they shall be holders for the poles with which with which to bear it. You shall make the poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. You shall put it before the veil, that is before the ark of the testimony, before the mercy seat that is over the testimony, where I will meet with you. Aaron will burn on it sweet incense every morning when he tends the lamps. He shall burn incense on it, and when Aaron lights the lamps at twilight, he shall burn incense on it, perpetual incense before the Lord throughout your generations. You shall not offer strange incense on it, or a burnt offering or grain offering, nor shall you pour a drink offering on it. And Aaron shall make atonement upon its horns once a year with the blood of the sin offering of atonement. Once a year he shall make atonement upon it throughout your generations. It is most holy to the Lord. And so we see, and I'll go ahead and read what Bob has to say about the altar of incense. The little altar of incense stood just outside the veil which divided the most holy from the holy place. Even though it stood on the front side of the veil in the holy place, it was regarded as belonging to the most holy place. And in Hebrews, we read that and talked about that censer, and to me this makes perfect sense. Again, let me read that. Even though it stood on the front side of the veil of the holy place, it was regarded as belonging to the most holy place. And he references Hebrews 9, 3, and 4. Because it was here that incense was offered directly to Jehovah. The altar stood 2 cubits high, 3 feet, and its top formed a cubic square, 18 inches. It was made of acacia wood and covered with gold. There was a gold molding around the top that formed a horn at each corner. Just below the molding, there were rings on the 4 corners through which gold-covered poles of acacia wood were placed for carrying it. Aaron was to burn incense upon this little altar every morning when he came into the tabernacle to trim the lamps in the lampstand, and then again in the afternoon when it was time to trim the lamps again. It was to be done regularly so that the incense would burn before the Lord through all the generations to come. Nothing else was ever to be offered upon this altar. No burnt offering, no grain offering, and again going through all the or any kind. Nor even any kind of incense. God had specified what was to be burned on the incense that was supposed to be burned there. Once a year on the Day of Atonement, Aaron and every high priest after him was to bring blood from the atonement sacrifice and put some of it on the horns of the altar of incense. Even the recipe for the special incense was to be offered on this altar was specified. The Lord told Moses to take fragrant spices, and that's what we're going to see in just a minute: gum resin, onychia, galbanum, and pure frankincense, all equal amounts. Make a fragrant blend of incense, the work of a perfumer. It is to be salted, pure, and sacred. Grind some of it into powder and spread it in front of the testimony in the tent of meeting, where I will meet with you. Do not make any incense like this for your own use. Consider it holy, that is set apart to the Lord. Whoever makes any like this for his own use will be cut off from the people. So God is very specific about this, and this is very. Very significant, very holy. And when you think about incense, and again, I didn't write this down, but you think about incense going up to God. What would you remember? He makes reference to something like that what goes up to God? Prayers, exactly. That's kind of like the incense that we offer, if you will. If the prayers before God. It's in a sense, I guess you could say, and you again gotta be careful there. You be careful with how we pray, the things that we value, and what we want to say. Because looking at this, you get the distinct understanding that God says, this is the pattern, this is how you do it, this is what I want. And so there were things that would be pleasing to God, and there's obviously things that would not be pleasing to God. The Lord said to Moses, take the spices, and I pronounce it stachti, and onycha and galbanum. Sweet spices with pure frankincense of each shall there be equal part, and make an incense blended by the perfumer, seasoned with salt and pure and holy. And we've read this, but I'm going to read it again. You shall beat some of it very small, and put part of it before the testimony in the tent of meeting, where I shall meet with you, and it shall be most holy for you. And the incense that you make shall be according to its composition. You shall not make for yourselves; it shall be for you holy to the Lord. Whoever makes any like it to use this perfume shall be cut off from the people. And it talks about frankincense here as a hardened, a gum-like material, resin. And I think there's things now, I know you can get essential oils and different things that have frankincense in them. I haven't really researched frankincense, but from my understanding, it's pretty versatile with some of the things that it does. It comes from the trunk of the bashwala tree. People use this oil on the skin in aromatherapy. Frankincense oil seems to kill some types of bacteria and fungi. Yeast is commonly used as a fragrance in soaps, lotions, and perfumes. Frankincense has a very aromatic, earthy scent. You'll definitely get the bashwala tree's musty pine notes along with citrus notes, spicy undertones. It's also quite similar to rosemary, which is a scent with which most are more familiar. And I'm not familiar with rosemary, so I guess it's a good scent. I don't know. But I know frankincense, when you read all these things that it does. And was frankincense valuable? Yeah. It wasn't something treated common. Yeah, that was one of the gifts. Yeah, the wise men. So frankincense, I'm sure, especially back in the day, that was something that was it was treasured. And again, I think people still, obviously, it still has quite a few uses and everything. Any thoughts before we move on? Okay.
That's a good point you made about following God's pattern, because I'm thinking about that as we're talking about all these objects.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things you see is that they're to be carried with the poles, the table and the ark and things such as that. Nobody came up with the idea of put a wheel on them, make it a little bit easier, would it? But,
Yeah.
Our song would sound better if we put some music to it, maybe added an organ or something to it nowadays. It would sound better if we had just those people that had real pretty voices. If they just sang, it would sound better. But we follow a pattern, and that pattern is is to do what he said and to not add to it. Now there are things that can be inferred. They had some leeway apparently, because we don't know exactly. We know just some details of like the candlestick, things like that, but we don't know exactly what it looked like.
Right, we don't have the exact, but we have enough. And you're exactly right. People tend to have this idea of innovation, how I can add to this. Yeah, I can. And there's a purpose in all this. And let me ask you this. Do we see a parallel, or do you see a parallel in these things like altar of incense? We talked about offering up prayers. The mercy seat. Christ is our mercy seat. I'm just saying, do we see the parallels that we should be getting from these things? And Barry makes a good point. We can't take God, the things that He's given us and told us how He wants things, and add to it or make it better. It has a purpose, and wouldn't you think one of the purposes might be to show our submission? God, you know this stuff, but I got a good idea over here. No, I need to have that humility that says, whatever you say, I'm going to do. And I'm not going to let human pride get in there, and I'm not going to let, thinking I'm smarter and let that get in there. I think that's the true sense of, God is giving them these things. And again, I don't know how they looked at it. I don't know if they started looking at it like, oh wow, we got to do what? We got to do what? instead of we get to, you mean God, this is how God wants to be served, and this is what pleases Him, and I get to do that? I'm just saying, I think our attitude, everything, all of it connects together, and hopefully, obviously we don't have to, move furniture, and we don't have to set things up, like a tabernacle, and we don't have to do, offer sacrifices, like physically taking, and we don't have to do certain things. But the thing is, there's a lot for us to do, and there's a way that it should be done, and how we approach God makes all the difference. And I think that's what He's trying to get them to understand, as well as us. But I appreciate your comment. Any other thoughts or things? Yes.
Just along with that, all the passages we've read so far teaches them so much about the character of God. He is holy. We'll see this in Leviticus. I am holy, therefore you be holy.
Mm-hmm.
So all these things were meant to teach them, if you're going to come into my presence, if you're going to receive forgiveness, if you're going to offer these sacrifices, you've got to be holy. What you offer has to be holy because I'm holy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all that repetition, and it may seem monotonous at times to us. Maybe it was to them at times, but that's the lesson meant to teach one of them.
And if I get caught up and I'm just looking at what I've got to do, you mean I got to do like checking a box or something? Look at the Pharisees. It seems like that's what they did. Okay, what have I got to do? Okay, and I'm just saying, it's again, I think the attitude and how it can teach us so much. It's important how we approach God and how we listen to God and how we do what He says. One of the things He stressed about all this was follow something. What did He say? Follow the what? The pattern. Don't get away from the pattern. Don't get off track. And when you look at the religious world around us, have they gotten off the pattern? Have they not innovation? Have they not? I like you pointed out. Hey, we can make the singing better, and again, let so much get into our thinking. Just do what God. If God says this is what He wants, then this is what we give Him, and we got to call it there. And I appreciate all y'all's kind attention and.